Wicked.
All right, awesome team. Welcome along, and we've got a special guest, Callum, Bruce, joining us. But just like to thank our sponsors for tonight, the Pacific Double tissues. We all need them out there, especially if we've got lovely partners who need to hear our stories. So pick up your box of tissues. But Callum, thanks for joining us and persisting with our technology. Hey, why don't you fill everyone in on where you're at the moment and what does life look like for you right now?
Yeah, thanks, bro. My wife, two boys. We're based down in Tiano, which is on the gateway to Fiordland, Milford Sound. We've been here since June 2015. We jumped out of rugby in Japan early 2015, came home for 2 or 3 months, and then been looking at business opportunities, and we managed to secure the Foursquare here in Tiano. So it's been just over 2 years for us, really.
Wow, yeah, that's mate. We'll dig into that Foursquare journey in a minute, but let's touch on the transition journey for you. So when was there an event that started you to think about life after rugby? Where were you? What happened?
Yeah, there was probably a couple of situations throughout our time in rugby. When we moved to Hamilton, my wife and I, BNZ had linked up with Super Rugby, and so we had a presentation from the local bank manager, Claire Gallagher, at BNZ Hamilton, and she presented to all the boys the opportunity that BNZ would like to offer them. And a part of it was around life after rugby. So she introduced us to thinking about what was it exactly we wanted to do. We knew that it was going to come at some stage. And a couple of the ideas that came about were jumping into the gym industry. My wife's parents were in Les Mills, Dunedin, so that was always going to be an opportunity, being in sport and the gym industry, retail, hospitality, and grocery. So we quite liked the idea of grocery, and Marissa and I always wanted to do something together. So that sort of was the sort of kickstart to thinking about grocery. And then when we went over to Japan, we sort of just get ourselves up. We sort of learned a bit more about it and what sort of position we had to be in. When the time came, we wanted to look at a store, and financially that was one part of it. So we got ourselves sorted out for that. And then I got an injury in my second year in Japan, and it really hit home that we need to start actively doing something about it, because with the foreign market, it can be quite brutal when you do get injured. So we then further positioned ourselves to be ready to jump into a store which was getting approved and things like that. So yeah, it was a couple of events, obviously being approached by a bank, and then secondly an injury throughout rugby.
Right, and so take us back to that night in Hamilton. You're in there, and all the boys are there, and BNZ have come in just to talk about options, and you've then said, okay, I'll look at either gym, groceries, or retail.
Yeah. It was just a formal presentation to saying this is what we can offer, and a part of it was life after rugby, and that was it. And we sort of tossed up those few different ideas, what we'd like to do, something together. And yeah, from there, it was sort of just getting some frameworks about what is it that we need to do to get into grocery. And one of it was learning the industry, doing some work experience. Second one was a financial position. And then thirdly, it was probably just the desire and the will to want to do it and put our minds to it. And we're able to get in, because there's a bit of perception that it's quite hard to get into. But like anything, you put your mind to it. And it managed to work out. It wasn't overnight. It sort of took... It was about a 5-year journey from sort of 2009, 2010, until we got into it in 2015. So, yeah, it was something we had thought about for a long time, and just gradually, as situations happen, we sort of got ourselves more prepared for it, set for it.
Yeah, right. So, that time you started thinking about that, what were the first initial steps then that you guys took in that 5-year journey?
Probably talking to other people in the industry. I remember giving Adrian Cashmore at the time was looking.
Oh, yeah.
He was going through some of his cash. He was going through some of his over in the Bay. He was also with Harcourts as well in the Bay. His family and then he was looking to branch into groceries. So yeah, just talking to people in the industry was a big one, just making sure it was what we wanted to do. Some meet and greets. We went to Pack and Save Hastings when we were up there one summer with catching up with the family. Went over and talked to the owner of Hastings Pack and Save and just heard about his journey, and just really made sure it was what we wanted to do and find out more about it. Obviously, it's a bit tricky when you're in the throes of rugby. You can't actively put yourself into business or get a lot of hands-on experience. So it was really talking to people and just connecting. And then I did do, this is probably jumping ahead a wee bit, 2014 in my off-season in Japan, I asked for extended leave, and I did 4 months at Gardens New World in Dunedin, working there, just not paid, just doing some experience. But really, I guess the process was just finding out the nuts and bolts of the industry and just trying to meet people and connect with people and find out about their journeys and what we needed to do to get into it.
Wow. So who helped you with those connections, bro? How'd you get a hold of Adrian? And you obviously just rocked up to the owner at Hastings.
Yeah, it was through a couple of mates that were tied up in groceries at the time. I had a friend working for Lion, Nathan, and he put me in touch with the Hastings owner. So again, it was just trying to join dots and just asking people, do you know, or just reaching out to people and finding out who's in the know with different people. Adrian was through the Chiefs. With this connection there, someone put me in touch. I can't remember. It might have been even our PDM duty at the time. But yeah, the BNZ bank manager had contacts. She had family in groceries. So again, it was someone else we got the chance to chat to. Yeah, you'd be amazed what, as you know, the connections you can make when you start asking the questions.
That's been the biggest point made by a lot of the guys we've spoken to, is around just using those networks and making connections. So when you started getting that ball rolling, you obviously started to think, yep, this is for us. Was the move to Japan to help with that, with that decision as well, or was that always on the cards?
No, the move to Japan, well, that was obviously going to help the financial side of it, but there was another step in our journey for Marissa and I, was going over there and experiencing something new. The culture, getting out of our comfort zone, and just getting a bit of experience overseas. But yeah, during that time, we were able to financially set ourselves up to jump into the grocery game.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah. So when you land in Japan, bro, I suppose some people have different mindsets. Some, like you say, use it to be able to set themselves up for life after rugby. So when you're there, what kind of insights can you give current athletes around setting up after rugby? So those who are over in Japan at the moment, what would your advice be for them so that they can really walk in or transition really well?
I think as for us, as the process went along, we knew we needed cash. So we were encouraged not to tie our money up in investing. So a lot of boys are into investing, or a lot of boys and families and wives included, I guess, into investing. We sort of held back. Cash was king in this situation with groceries, so we tried not to invest too heavily in property, which we had done while we were in New Zealand. So we started selling out of property and just having a pool of cash. I guess, through asking those questions, we knew quite clearly what the financial position was for us, and that was cash. So throughout our journey, obviously, we just chose how we played with our money while we were over in Japan. Obviously, in the back of our mind, we were thinking about coming home at some stage, and we couldn't spend up large all the time and every time. So we had to make those hard calls about where we spent our money and how we spent it. But we made sure we had a good time and did all that, because obviously you only get the one chance of being overseas and experiencing before the real world kicks in. And I'm glad we did, because she's a different beast when you're out of the rugby game. But we were, I'd say, rounding off, just try to be smart with what we were doing, and because we knew what we were trying to achieve, that helped us make those decisions and helped us make those hard calls about what we did with our cash.
it just really sounds awesome. Kind of that you made that decision earlier on, like 2009 at the Chiefs. You're like, okay, yeah, groceries, we'll find out. And once you made that decision, then it was as if all your other decisions, you know, like you say, were made towards that as an outcome. And so when I've spoken to others who didn't know what they were doing, you know, they're kind of floating around until they really know what direction they're going in. So it sounds like it was just really well planned, bro, in terms of where you're going to.
Yeah, definitely. I think we had some direction, so that helped. Obviously, along the way, kids came into the picture, and then, you know, that could often change your direction and things like that. But I think as we went along the journey, we realised, yep, no, as a family, we could do this. Obviously, the idea started out when it was just Marissa and I. We always knew kids were in the picture, but I think it was always something we'd sort of put our minds to, and as a couple and as a family, we wanted to do. So it's managed to work out for us. And saying that, it hasn't been an easy transition or an easy journey. Nothing's ever easy. There's been its challenges, but we had clarity around what we wanted to do, that's for sure. And it helped us with our time in Japan and setting ourselves up, definitely. And exiting out, as you say, even got some close mates going through the same thing. That transition and the knowing what you're going to do is quite daunting. And at times it was daunting for us because when we left Japan, we didn't have a store to come back to. I said no to said no to extended contracts. They were wanting us to stay on, but we took the tough step to step away on our terms, and when we were ready to come back home. And we were sort of in limbo for a few months looking for a store, even though we were actively looking for one while we were in Japan. Nothing had come up when we made the final call to come home. So there was that unknown for 3 or 4 months when we got back to New Zealand about, you know, what is it? Well, are we going to get a store, you know, tomorrow, 6 months, 12 months time? So there was a bit of risk. There was some calculated risks for us, but we knew if we wanted to get a store, we had to be back in the country and ready to go. And that's the decision we made. As hard as it was to turn away from rugby, we were ready for it. And we just came back and hoped like hell it was going to work out.
Yeah, hey, well, let's dive into that a little bit, bro. When you guys had to make that decision to, I suppose, I'm not going to say hang up the boots because you still look young enough to play. You're probably running around down there at the local club or something. But like you say, to not re-sign on a professional contract, how did that feel? What were the discussions like at home? And, you know, since finishing, what has been the hardest part?
Yeah, the decision to finish, I knew finishing rugby, all the things I enjoyed about rugby, I could still get, and like I have done in the last couple of years playing for Tiano down here, is the camaraderie and the socialising, jumping on the bus and doing all that, the challenge of trying to win a rugby game. I could get all those things that I was enjoying in Japan, but the only thing we were missing out on was obviously the moolah. So, it was hard to step away, but it wasn't, because we knew what we were going into when it eventuated. Was going to be an exciting journey as a family and as a couple. So it was hard to leave some of the brothers in Japan, the Japanese guys that have become really good friends with over 5 years. We're at the one club. All that, those things that are hard to walk away. But the money wasn't, so that wasn't an issue. We were ready, I think, and we'd enjoyed our time there, and we'd done everything we could to enjoy that time. And the family were getting to an age where we were ready to come home and have a New Zealand sort of lifestyle for the kids. And really, we were just excited about the next stage of our journey as a family, really. So it all sort of made sense to us. But you sort of look back at it throughout, in that transition period when it is hard, you think, oh, maybe it could have been easier just being in Japan. All those questions go through your mind, but at the end of the day, as each day's gone by and as we've transitioned out, the reality of being back home is exactly what we wanted.
Mate, it really does sound like you've got the best of both worlds here at the moment. Like you say, you can still run around and for the local club, and that fills that need of camaraderie and obviously playing the game, which is but then also you've got this life, something that you can put your life into now. And think you touched on it really is the vital part, is knowing what you're going to be doing before you actually transition. Would that be fair?
Yeah, we were lucky to have that control. I know for some of the brothers, injury, non-selection, clubs falling over, that sort of thing can dictate. But for us, we always were mindful about still having some control around what we were doing, and the year-to-year contract thing was weighing heavily on my wife and I. What are we going to be doing next year, in 2 years' time, and is it the right thing for the kids? So yeah, we like I said, we made that decision to step out when we did, just so we could keep some control, and we had another option, as you say, in the background that gave us something to go to and throw ourselves into. So yeah, we were quite fortunate in that, and yeah, I definitely understand that the unknown is scary for a lot of the brothers. So yeah, it's a big challenge, and networking and being around people and yeah, trying to ask the questions and figure out what it is the key really. And we were obviously fortunate to find something that did tick all those boxes for us.
Oh look, Callum, hey, I'm just gonna say it out here, bro. Is you had control because you made a decision to do something about it. That's what I'm hearing. And too many others that I've not spoken to online, but offline and just mates, it's because they haven't made a decision early enough to do something, and therefore they're out of they're not in control. So I know you've talked about some things already, but what would your top tips be, bro, to others out there to help them keep control and have as much control as possible for their transition, knowing that obviously injury is out of our own control? But yeah, what would your tips be for them?
I guess you need some time to think about exactly what it is. You've got to give yourself the opportunity to think about what is it exactly I want to do. And it doesn't have to happen right now, but I guess you've got to give yourself the security of time. So that means finances or a position where you can take some time to think about it. The biggest tip would be to probably choose something you're going to be passionate about, or because you've got to wake up every day and get yourself out of bed and go and do it. Like rugby used to drive most of us, get out of bed and go and do it. Yeah, you've got to find something within, as much as during the 2 years I've woken up going, heck, what do you got to go sell groceries today? There's the challenge within that of drawing someone into the shop and presenting a product that still motivates me to get out of bed, as much as you might be sick of the people at work or whatever, or you've got stuff weighing on your mind at work and heaps going on, there's still a challenge within it. So there's got to be something that I guess drives you in that job or that career. It is for a long time. So yeah, you might not hit it the first time, but I guess if you keep challenging yourself, you'll find it at some stage. But yeah, it's a really tricky one. Yeah.
What I'm hearing, bro, initially was make a decision, choose something, then go and research it a bit like you did to actually get a feel for, is it you? And, that then enabled you to get the wheels in motion towards that end destination, and all your decisions along the way were made towards that end goal. And now you're there. You're in Te Ao now with your store. So talk about going into business, and is that something is new for you, or are you growing up in a family in business? And how's that been?
Yeah, it's been massively challenging for myself. My parents weren't in business in any way, shape or form, farming background in the junior years, and then my mum's a teacher. My old man was a cop when he was 40, so very normal sort of background. But from Rissa and her family, they've been in business, as I said, so she had the benefit of growing up as a child, sitting around the table, hearing her parents discuss business. So a lot of the stuff we've had to go through, she's heard and seen it before, where it's all been quite new for me. So that relationship and her background's been great for us in that. And with this business we've got into, we've seen strengths that she's got and I've got that have helped us work as a couple. And that's probably one of the biggest things. I think about the transition and going into this, being able to do it as a couple has been amazing. You've had someone else there going through it. So we're quite lucky in that regards, and we've chosen an industry where we could do it together for that reason. She's seen her parents work together in business for a long time, so she was always quite keen for it. So I guess, if I think back to your previous question, what big tip, like having a rock or someone you could go home and talk to about it, and understand what we're going through has been huge. So we've had that as a benefit. But yeah, it's been very overwhelming, like as we sort of chatted before we kicked off. When you go from playing rugby and you're reasonably successful and good at it to starting something that you don't know anything about is a bit of a reality check. It's consumes you, it's energy sapping because you're obviously putting all your energy into day-to-day, getting the learning process, understanding it and running it. Come the end of the day, you're pretty knackered, and it was pretty absorbing for those first 12, 18 months. And as people say, the first 2 years of business is the hardest, and I can definitely concur with them. The unknowns and not knowing has been huge challenges for both of us.
Mate, I just can't imagine. So you literally picked up a store. I mean, did you have some training before that, or do you just go and open the doors and you're there?
Yeah, no, it was pretty random. Like I said, I was fortunate to do about 4 months in Gardens, New World, Dunedin, and that was in New Worlds and Foursquares are polar opposites. The same thing, you're selling groceries, but how Foursquares are run to New Worlds, obviously you got a huge amount of staff at the New World level. So both of us had very little experience, and literally we were handed the keys. We had someone from Foodstuffs there for the first week. We had a week of training with the old owners the week before. And then we had the staff that we took over just to really guide us. So really, it was pretty daunting and overwhelming, but we scrambled our way through, and we just learned on the go, really. We always knew they used the Foursquare business as a sort of apprenticeship, or obviously we're looking at bigger things later on. But at the moment, this is enough for us to handle. But it's like an apprenticeship. We're sort of toiling away at the start, just learning from the bottom up, really. So it's amazing because you have to learn all parts of the business, from checkout to cutting up meat, putting stock on the shelf. You're literally doing everything. So, pretty much that. You got given the keys, and away we went. The process was like buying a home at the time. You become approved to buy a store, so you go through a vetting process, financials. Russ and I had interviews, what you like as people, would you suit small rural communities, things like that, how would you handle working together. You sort of get asked the hard and honest questions about running a business, and they obviously thought we'd be all right at it because they gave us the approval, and then you're in the market to buy a store, and that's literally a store comes up by email. You'll hear about it by email, and then everyone just puts in their bid, does their homework on it, due diligence, all that, and then you sort of bid on it, or you get in contact with the owner and start some negotiations. And we were fortunate enough that we went through that process here at Te Anau and come out successful. So the rest is history.
Nice. And so can you give us a bit of an insight? If we were to watch you in that first 18 months, the old big brother, and we had cameras in your house, what type of Callum would we be seeing, and what would be going on in your head? So learning this whole new industry, as athletes are going to have to do when they come out of rugby, how do they cope? What is your feedback to them?
Yes, I think... I guess if I was to do it over again, if I was to have my time over again, and I've thought about this a lot because it has been a huge challenge, and together Marissa and I have thought about this a lot and we've talked about it, I probably would have simplified things more. And that sounds easy to say it now, but because those things I was probably doing at the time are simple, but at the time they seemed overwhelming. Everything seemed overwhelming at the start because it was all so new. Because it was a dynamic business and we had seasonality, what you would have seen was me running around like a blue-ass fly, really, trying to do everything and everything, working copious amounts of hours, neglecting myself, health-wise, eating-wise, and just getting in the zone and not seeing the family too much because, you're absorbed in this business, and I was excited about it, and it was through excitement and the energy I had for it. But what I was doing was taking its toll on me, just wearing me down a wee bit because I was doing too much. And simplifying would have been just having some clear goals for the week. What am I trying to achieve? And that's easy to say now because when you don't know what you're doing, what are your goals meant to be? Or when you're not getting coached through it, what are you meant to be doing? So I had to rely on my wife, people that were in the industry to give us direction, other Foursquares nearby. So I made sure I reached out to the other Foursquare owners close to us. We're talking Tuatapiti and Lumsden, 40 minutes, an hour's drive, go down and sit with them for half an hour, 2 hours, just trying to reach out to people and say, what do I do here? I don't know and it's probably being brutally honest and just saying to yourself, I don't know what I'm doing. Fake it till you make it's good, but you still need to ask those questions at some stage about, hey, what do I do? What should I be putting on the shelves? Asking my staff, they were there for X amount of years, each of them before I got there, what works, what doesn't work. So, asking the questions. And if I had my time over again, probably try to simplify it a wee bit and not do too much.
And how did you feel once you started reaching out for help? Because I think that's a really important point when we're diving into something. I've had that experience this year, and I didn't ask for help into something I totally didn't know about, and I was overwhelmed, and it just sat with me and then kind of exploded on it. So
no, I can
feel once you reached out.
Yeah, it worked in two ways. It's a fine balance because we reached out a lot and we had people come into the store and tell us what we should be doing, and that almost overwhelmed us at times too, giving us too much direction. So I guess it was good to hear that advice and to use that advice, but often people want to give you a lot of advice, and that was overwhelming because you're then trying to do too much as well with that advice. So no, it was good to reach out because you then picked through what you needed to hear and wanted to hear, and you sort of implemented the 2 or 3 bits that we kind of hope would make sense. So again, once we were getting all this advice, we were trying to decipher it and just make sure, what bits of this should we take and add, and it's all sort of just slowly fallen into place over time. And I guess time's a big one. I know in rugby, like you've got a game this week, you review it and you need results next week. But it's been a slower process than that, I think. And we were so eager in the start and also eager and motivated for success that that also caught me out a wee bit. And when I say slow down, I should have slowed down how much progress I was wanting so early and just taking my time, small steps, baby steps, walk before you can run. And as I say, it's easy to say now, but in the moment when you're in it, you can't often see too clearly about it. So having a chance to go away and ask people helps you to refocus and slow down. That's what we probably found, is they were just reminding us, everything you're doing is right. Just take your time, be patient, slow and steady sort of stuff. So, yeah.
It's what you described there around, you're in the thick of it and you're easier to think now because you're kind of out of it and able to reflect, but you don't have that pressure like you did back then. You could almost describe that as being under the pump in your own 22, couldn't you?
Yeah, hard on the line. Yeah, not wanting to make those confrontational tackles, those try-saving ones. Yeah, no, it's a bit like that. You got the number 8 peeling off the back and running at the smallest guy, the first 5 on the field. Yep, those sort of situations. But and that's what we had to remind ourselves. Like, we've been in tough situations before, those sort of situations, and you've got to link it back to. And I always try to keep linking it back to rugby and, what would I do in this situation? It's just like in rugby, yes, I might not know what I'm doing in this situation, but there is an answer or there is a solution. Asking for help's one of them. Taking care of myself physically was another one, going from exercising every day, not sitting in an office, working with majority women. At the start, it was mainly female in the environment. So all those sort of changes were different to what I experienced for 10 years in professional rugby. Yeah. So it's trying to take you back to some familiar places, the places you were comfortable in throughout rugby career. is making sure you get some of that still in that early transition, so that you still feel settled. We'd obviously moved to a new town, 6-month-old baby, a 2-year-old, and a new business. So, you've got a lot of things juggling in the year, and the business was a wee bit run down. So a lot of these things going on, and by going and playing rugby, having family close by, did really give us that grounding and that settled feeling. Because often when you've got a lot going on, you feel really unsettled. So it's trying to find things that can settle you down and make you feel comfortable again.
That's awesome. That's an awesome piece of advice. So it's almost like, I think about my 2-year-old, he's got his favourite blankie, and we can take him anywhere, no matter where we are, whose house we're at, as long as he's got that, he's a bit anchored. And it sounds like you're saying, have some of those things so that you can, be a bit more stable, I suppose.
I think if there's one, in reflecting, we wish we probably had done more experience in the industry to help with our transition. It was so happened the business we went into didn't really have very good structures. It was a wee bit run down. So when we did our due diligence on the business, we probably didn't ask enough questions or take someone with us. Like I would have probably, in hindsight, taken the Tuatapere owner or the Lumsden owner and said, let's go for a walk through the shop and tell me what you can see, because I can't see what's going on because we don't know the industry, and tell me what we're going to expect. Because when we got there, we didn't really know what we were going to expect. A skeleton staff roster, departments not performing. Like we actually picked up it had huge opportunity, but a business that wasn't performing. And when we didn't know the industry and we went into a business that wasn't performing, it was obviously going to be that much harder again. So I guess having a clear idea of, as good as we were at planning, we probably didn't, it's worked out really well for us. The shop's doing well now, but the shop we took over was a difficult one at the time as well. So we've compounded, young family, new town, moving home from Japan, and then putting on top of that a business that wasn't performing. So, those key things about finding some security and, doing things that we enjoyed doing and made us comfortable, people around us really helped in that initial transition.
Hey, look, Callum, it sounds like, it's a pretty nice story in terms of someone transitioning out of 10-year sport to a new venture in life. In that 2 years, though, in that first 2 years, 18 months, what were the hardest times like? Was there any self-doubt? You come home after, 120 hours a week work, or did you think, oh God, what is it really what you thought it was? Were there any of those moments? Any crying in the room?
Yeah, no, for a manly bloke that doesn't shed a lot of tears, there's been plenty of those, and those are I think a lot of it was through exhaustion. I probably hit the wall there for a wee bit, doing too much, flogging myself too much with work, not taking adequate breaks and having a smoko and going for a walk and getting some fresh air, being trapped in the shop. And that was just through sheer excitement and enthusiasm, but it probably wore me down in the early stages. So yeah, I probably got too tired. I had a couple of times where I had to check out there and just have a few days just to really sleep it off and chill, because it did get overwhelming. So yeah, it did happen to me. Hit the wall pretty hard. And then self-doubt creeps in, obviously. Is this the right thing for us? Should it be this hard? All those questions you ask yourself. But I think for me, it was just tiredness. And the last couple of months, we've had a big project refitting the business. And even now in the last week, having been through that sort of those periods where I've worked so hard and got so tired, I can feel it coming on now. So I've learned, for the next week, I'm just going to step back and take it easy, just to make sure I catch up on my Z's and have a bit more family time and chill out a bit, because it's easy when you're the one running the shop to keep throwing yourself at it and needing to do more. But we've found that we've just got to step away, and the business will actually take care of itself. It might not be run the way you want it, and a bit of work might back up, but it's better that than me being at work or Marissa being at work so tired and we can't really think straight. So yeah, it definitely does happen. And when we got tired and exhausted, all the self-doubt and all those bad demons crop up. So
yeah, and
definitely something we've learned to manage.
And so how did that affect your guys' relationship in those times? You know, was it a bit titchy around the household? And how do you get out of something like that? Like, was it just...
definitely you're a bit short with each other, and I was lucky that we were both in the business, so we could understand what each other was going through. We could, we've seen and we've heard of other families being in the Foursquare business and one being in, one not being in, and maybe not understanding what the other person's going through, but being through it together and going through it together, we can sort of assimilate and know what each other's going through. So that's helped, but we've learned to give each other the space or do those, take the kids off each other's hands when we need to. The kids pick up on it as well. They sense the stress, and they know when there must be a bit going on. Mum and dad are short with each other, all that jazz. But I think it's led to a healthier relationship. We definitely know more about each other through that experience, and even in this last week, Marissa said, you've had a couple of big months with this whole shop. We've done well. We just need to chill out now for a wee bit. Put the handbrake on a wee bit and chill as we lead into our Christmas trade. So it's not that where I would have, 12, 18 months ago, just pushed myself through it and kept working more and more hours. So it's just learning from that experience, and just having a partner and a wife that can tell me honestly what I need to do, and the same way for me to her. So it definitely put a lot of strain on the relationship and made us sit down and understand each other a bit more and what we're going through, that's for sure, in a healthy way.
Yeah, and it sounds, because you guys had that discussion earlier on, 2019, about where you guys wanted to go together, it just keeps sounding like you've travelled this path together, you experienced hard times together, and you get out of it together. So I think that's a good...
and I guess that's the upside. Like, it as much in the time and in the moment, you think, oh, there's no way out of this. There's definitely... it is, it's just about trying to understand that there is a silver lining in it, and it will be better at some stage, that's for sure. And we always say to ourselves, as long as we know when that that moment's coming on, you're getting tired, we just pull back and make sure we give ourselves that breathing room. But definitely being in it together and having that one goal and knowing where we want to go, it's definitely helped pull me through it and me pull her through it, that's for sure. Because if I'd have been doing it on my own, I probably would have jumped out at some stage, just because it does get quite overwhelming.
Yeah. Hey, well, look, just before we head towards wrapping up, was there any times you couldn't see a way out, but then at the end it was a silver lining?
No, well, the work, I've come to realise there's always going to be work there. I think I was chasing this idea that I'd be on top of my work all the time and things will be smooth and rosy and you'll be on top of it. And you have days like that, but then all of a sudden something else crops up, a staffing issue or something like that. So I think that's just the nature of the business. It's quite dynamic. There's always something going on. Breakdown in equipment. I think when I analyse myself and look at this experience, I think and probably comes from a bit of my rugby career, being a first five, and that when you're trying to control everything and have a control over everything, sometimes you've got to relinquish some of that control and realise it's out of your hands, and you just got to adjust to it. So I've probably learned a lot of skills around, that's happened, how can you react to it and adjust, which is definitely rugby and situational stuff, but I guess I've probably a bit more sense of understanding how much I like to control things in business, but I've had to probably pull back and let some things go and just react a bit better.
Hey, well, I want to finish on touching on that transferable skills. And you've talked about, in the tough times, you kind of link back to rugby and, you just got to head down, bum up and get through it. And you've just talked about, a trait as you as a player, you trying to take that over into business as well. What other things have you applied in your business that have come directly from your rugby days and your experience as a rugby player?
I think if there's one, I think the camaraderie and as a group, I've tried to adopt the mentality as a group will be successful as a business. So trying to incorporate everyone in the business, from the younger kids to the adults, making them feel a sense of belonging, being a part of the journey. We've lent on them really hard because we haven't when I say lent on them, like lent on all the staff to help us through the journey, and they've been right there with us, that we've made sure they've been rewarded and been a part of it as well, and making sure they have a sense of belonging as well. Because it's all very well for us to be on our journey, but we've decided that we want to take them through with us and make sure they're enjoying the ride and they're up to speed on what we're trying to create and do, so that that work environment is an enjoyable one. I know throughout all of our rugby experience, we've probably had times where the environment's been a wee bit strained for whatever reasons. And I know most success is done when everyone's getting on and it's all working really well. So that's probably the biggest thing that from my experience with rugby that I've been able to take over, is just making sure I try and manage the environment, people enjoying it, turning up to work. So it's when we employ them, we're telling them this is what we're looking to achieve as a business. We want people to come to work because they enjoy it. They're having a hard day, tell us about it, and we'll help them through it where we can. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. We're trying to make it a team. It's probably been the biggest thing I could take, and that was the thing I knew going into it. If there was going to be one thing that would give me comfort in knowing that I could actually put into the business, was some of those skills around environments and professionalism and what makes a successful team. So when the chips were down and I wanted something to help me through and remind me that, yep, I'm doing the right job at this, I'd always find something around teamwork, a get together or something funny or something to get everyone together at work and just have a bit of fun. So yeah, that's probably the one strength I've had.
See, that's awesome. Like, you dived into something you didn't know a lot about, but by having that experience and that team and that culture from rugby, that gave you some real confidence to, take it on, I suppose, and know that you can make a difference in that part of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because we're always searching for confidence and things to reassure us that we're good at something. So, yeah definitely that's been a big one when and early on there was a lot of confidence knocks. You're getting things wrong because you're trying things, trying a new product, or you're pushing the boat out there with different things. And your confidence knocks are hard. Like, all rugby players pride themselves on doing a damn fine job at what they're doing. So getting knocked back regularly at the start was a tricky one too, and that was probably one of the biggest mountains we had to climb. Was for every good things we did, there was probably twice as many things that didn't quite work out for us, employing the wrong person or stocking the wrong product. So coming to grips with failure was another adjustment as well.
Mate, that's a point. Oh, that's awesome. Love that, because you're dead right, because athletes are almost perfectionists, aren't they? And they've got a week to get that sorted before the next performance. And like you say, when you dive into something completely new, there's going to be some mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And when you haven't got that support person or that coach or that analyst sitting there reviewing you and you're pointing in the right direction, it is quite daunting. You feel almost rudderless. So yeah, trying to connect with people, as I mentioned on, and give you some direction. That's why we searched out for direction, was because that's what I needed. That's what I was searching for, someone to tell me, no, you're on the right track, or no, maybe point in this direction. So yeah, you'd be surprised when you reach out how many people are willing to help and give you some direction, because more often than not, then they've possibly been in that situation as well. So yeah, definitely, I was definitely searching for a lot of things that were happening in my rugby career when I stepped into business, and I've kind of, over the last couple of years, as you get better at it and you can sort of mold yourself away, but it's inevitable that you're going to be searching for the same triggers, the same sort of assistance that we're getting in the rugby environment.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, Callum, mate, I can feel this could go on for a whole nother day, to be honest. There's a whole lot of...
We won't bore people too much. They're probably switched off by now.
That's all right. They might watch it in two parts, one in the morning, one at night. But look, to wrap up, there's so much gold there that I've taken on board, and one of them is when you step out into something new, find like a rudder. I'm just going to take that term. Find a rudder, whether that's someone who's done it before, just to give you that guidance on whether you're on the right track or not. But if you were to go back to yourself in 2009, or when you started out playing footy, what advice would you give your younger self now to make sure that you can transition effectively?
Well, you've got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it while you're there, but you've also got to be prepared that it's not going to be there at some stage. Yeah, so I wouldn't change anything, but be prepared. It's going to change at some stage, and you can either control that, I guess, or you can let yourself be controlled. So I guess it's taking some control of where you want to go. It's a bit cliche, but it's a funny thing. If you really put your mind to it, anything is possible, really.
That's awesome. Love that. Either take control or be controlled. That's wicked. Hey, that's a piece of gold, bro. And just on behalf of everyone who ends up watching or listening, just thanks for your time. Hang on after this.
Yeah, sure.
I've got another question to ask you offline, but just really appreciate your sharing and your honesty. And no doubt there's some stuff in there for anyone who's transitioning, but also those who want to transition into this type of business. You might get a few messages, mate. You might have to start up your mentoring business.
I don't know about that. They might get sick of the waffle. No, I'm happy to help out. As I say, everyone's journey is quite unique. Ours has been what it is with our situation, and we're always too willing to help, whether it be my wife or I. If anyone wants to come and see what we're up to, they're more than welcome, or give us a shout out. No worries at all. We've been through it. We know the challenges that lie ahead for a lot of people, but it definitely can be a successful one. It should be a successful one for people anyway.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks again. So JT and Callum out, Everyone have peace.
Sure.